we talk about the entire language debate that began yesterday between actor Ajay Devgan as well as the South actor Sudeep, that has now led to another launch of the language debate in the country. Remember, Ajay Devgan had responded through a Twitter tweet as far as actor Sudeep is concerned, where he questioned the actor as to why did you dub your languages in Hindi language if you believed that Hindi was not our national language. Now, this has certainly led to a possible misunderstanding that began between the two actors that has now been resolved. Remember, he had shared a reactionary tweet against a comment made by the actor Sudeep recently, and Sudeep, who is a Kannada actor, recently said that Hindi is no longer the national language of the country. Let me also now go across to our guests joining us on this broadcast. We have Mr. Rajagopalan as well. Rajagopalan, how would you respond to this entire debate that has begun with the actors first, who seem to have solved their misunderstanding, but certainly it has once again triggered the language debate, specifically talking about the Hindi language?
Madam, you asked a very pertinent question. Ajay Devgan is totally right. He is on the right side because I take two important things. Kiccha Sudeepa has never acted in Bollywood. In entire Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Y. Vaidyantimala Bali, Hema Malini, Rekha Ganesh, these are all heroines of yesteryears in Hindi films. How did they get adjusted? That is one. Second thing, Siddaramaiah is doing a politics. Ajay Devgan has said, and he has got every right to speak. He expressed his opinion. The expression of opinion is not banned in India. Similarly, Siddaramaiah can express. Karnataka is going for polls next year. They want to keep up this momentum of anti-Hinduism. Three quick points, madam. One, electronic city is full of North Indians. Bangalore is full of North Indians. You want North Indians help, but North Indians Hindi. Second thing, two prime ministers from South during the past 15 years. One is P.V. Narasimha Rao, another is Devagowda. Now the Sudeep should answer why Devagowda lasted for only 1 year and P.V. Narasimha Rao lasted for 5 years because of Hindi. Second thing, in Google, nowadays you have an app. For everything it has come in app. You speak Hindi, you get in Kannada. You speak in Tamil, you get Hindi. So translation is, as the digitalization is taking forward, my understanding is that Hindi language, Hindi being imposed in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, is a political issue. But the Tamilians as well as Kannadigas, they want the help of all North Indians. This is a double standard. A.R. Rahman music is interested, but A.R. Rahman should not be there. What is that happening? Double standard. So either Tamilians or Kannadigas should learn at least Hindi. They are not imposing. That is what Ajay Devgan is saying. Sudeepa does not have an argument. He is politicizing it.
All right, stay with us, Mr. Rajagopalan. Let me also now go across to our other guest. We have Gokul Chandran, who's a political analyst. Gokul Chandran, do you believe and agree with what Mr. Rajagopalan is stating? Because we have now not just the actors who are in a way debating the entire language issue. We have the politicians coming in. We also have how one of the Congress leaders have come out and stated that you cannot call Hindi as your official language. What about the people in the South and the other languages that people use?
Good morning, Padmaja. The problem here is we will forget about the art because art doesn't have a language and it is beyond the barriers of language. So art per se doesn't have any language. But the problem I see here is the tweet of Mr. Ajay Devgan, which says that Hindi is our national language. That is the only problem I am seeing in this. And we know Hindi is not our national language. Let it be constitutionally or morally or literally, Hindi cannot be our national language. When Kiccha Sudeep said that Hindi is not our national language, Mr. Ajay Devgan want to impose and reiterate that Hindi is our national language. That's why the division comes in. When you impose something, when you impose saying that Hindi is the national language or any language is superior and any language is the supreme language, others have to follow it. That is when the problem arises and that is when the division arises. Other than that, when you see the movies are made in the Hindi movies are being dubbed in Tamil, Malayalam, Telugu, and the South Indian movies are being dubbed into Hindi. The reason being, it is for the people, for the audience to easily understand the language, rather than releasing a
But
Tamil
Mr.
movie
Chandran,
in
that's
Delhi.
the point that was also being raised by Ajay Devgan in retaliation to what Sudeep said. And Mr. Rajagopalan, if you would also come in to state that it is not just the South Indian language that are now being dubbed as pan-India, they are also being promoted and also being dubbed in Hindi, but also the other way around. So we cannot just say that it's just the South films that are being dubbed in Hindi.
No, you are right, madam. Ajay Devgan, what he has mentioned is absolutely correct. Ajay Devgan is on dot. He is not imposing. He says it's a national language. Either you disagree or not, you say Malayalam is national language. That, you have to ensure it is spoken at least in 18 states. You can't ignore it. For example, French. For example, Spanish. You can't say that Spanish is a world language. There are a lot of languages in the world. Therefore, my understanding is Ajay Devgan has every right to speak his mind. He has expression of freedom of his mind. Second thing, similarly, Sudeepa is also right. Sudeepa has a problem because elections are being held in Karnataka. That is why they are ripping up their sentiments. Why Devagowda did not last more than 1 year as a prime minister? Because of Hindi. Because of Hindi, Gokul Chandran and myself have earned our bread because of Hindi. So these are all certain things we must understand. You can't brush aside,
Right.
Mr. Gokul Chandran has been a senior officer in Indian Army. He speaks Hindi. What is wrong in it? He speaks Malayalam, Tamil, everything. I speak 4 languages. He speaks 5 languages. Therefore, it's politically they are wanting to make a posture that Congress, which is the country which got freedom because of that. Now they are splitting between Karnataka and Kannada and Hindi, Tamil.
Right.
So this is diabolical attitude of Congress, especially Siddaramaiah and D.K. Shivakumar.
All right, going back to our guests, and Mr. Gokul Chandran, retire, would you also, in a way, say that Kiccha Sudeep was aware that there would have been consequences of his statement where he is stating that Hindi is not our national language? He knows what is happening in the country as far as the language debate is concerned?
Yeah, that must be a fallout. Actually, the Kiccha Sudeep's statement, he might be waiting for the right opportunity for replying to Mr. Amit Shah, who reiterated the same thing about the Hindi language and one nation, one language policy. So when Kiccha Sudeep got an opportunity, he replied that Hindi is not our national language. That was an answer to Mr. what Mr. Amit Shah.
Would you like to come in there?
Amit Shah has been reiterating what P. Chidambaram said, what even the former home ministers have said. In Hindi Salakar Samiti, you have to speak about Hindi. Can they speak about Malayalam and Tamil? No. Hindi Salakar
The problem here is what Mr. Amit Shah has told is that all the communication should be in Hindi.
Language of a uniform language. When we have Tamil Nadu has accepted 2 language formula, they don't have Kendriya Vidyalaya, they don't have NEET. So what? So be with that. Therefore, there is no question of Hindi being imposed. No one is imposing Hindi. Gokul Chandran, you speak Hindi. Has anyone prompted you to impose Hindi on you? किसी ने नहीं बोला है हिंदी.
Do you believe and do you agree with what Mr. Chandran is saying of imposition of a language? He's constantly talking about how the Hindi language is being imposed on them.
किसी ने impose नहीं किया है language. Who is imposing? Did Congress impose the language? P.V. Narasimha Rao for 5 years as chief minister, prime minister.
No.
Because he knew
Mr. Rajagopal. Mr. Rajagopal.
All right, asking both our guests to stay with us. We are also joined by S.G. Kumaraswamy on the phone line. Mr. Swamy, how would you respond to this entire language debate that has once again been ignited with this conversation that these 2 actors, Ajay Devgan and Mr. Sudeep, had on Twitter? And we also have the Congress now coming out and once again reiterating that Hindi is not our national language.
That is, everybody's feeling is the same thing. Hindi is not a national language. Whoever want to learn different languages, they will learn. In this country, different states have their own languages. On that language only, they are leading their life. why recent days, after this BJP came to power in Delhi, unnecessarily bringing Hindi issue frequently, I am worried about that. This is sensitive issue, very sensitive issue. For that reason, I am telling you, whether Ajay Devgan, whether anybody, unnecessarily don't create any panic on the mind of the common man. We have facing several problems. For that, we have to look after.
But Mr. Kumaraswamy, don't you also believe that Kiccha Sudeep was also aware that there will be reactions to his statement where he's saying that Hindi is not a language?
Hindi is a language, I know. But that is, Hindi is not a national language. Who told Hindi is national language? Several states, they have their own language. Hindi, whoever want to learn, they are learning. Unnecessarily, why you forcing Hindi on the peoples of this country? Hello? Huh?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Why you forcing? This will go into...
So, do you believe that once again people are trying to impose the Hindi language? Do you also believe that statement?
Yeah, definitely. Central government, I don't know why they are actually encouraging this kind of stance. Because in this country, the federal structure is there. By giving all scope for these kind of things, ultimately you are going to destroy this federal system of this country. For that, don't encourage anybody.
And Mr. Kumaraswamy, you had also tweeted out on this issue. You have spoken that how Ajay Devgan is speaking like a BJP mouthpiece. Do you believe that?
Yeah, that is right actually. Why he raised? What is his responsibilities? He is not necessary for him to teach us. For his field is different. Why he raised this issue? What is necessary for him?
But then questions can also be raised against why Sudeep raised the language issue in the first place while he is promoting a film.
That reason only, because Ajay Devgan's reaction, he raised the issue. That's why I am telling you, we are living in this country by using several languages as a brothers and sisters. Mutual understanding this country is going on from last 75 years after the independence.
But you have also spoken in that tweet, Mr. Kumaraswamy, how Hindi is spoken by the majority of the people. That does not make it a national language. So, what would you respond to what the Home Minister has said?
Using majority issue, you can force anybody to accept their issues by using majority. This will not going to succeed in this country. This country structure is different. They think that they will going to, whatever they will say, we will simply accept it. If we want to split this country, southern India and northern India, for that you are working out.
And Mr. Kumaraswamy, would you also believe that you keep regional languages or regionalism above what is the bigger picture for the country?
Yeah, regional language, that is sentiment is there. In this country, several years, 1,000 years, we have some separate cultures in different areas, regions. In this country's structure is different. You can't pressurize them to change their cultural activities or language activities. You can't forcibly order them to change their languages.
But Mr. Kumaraswamy, don't you believe that like every country has its own language? We have France where people speak French or Spanish, and we have several different languages for different countries. Don't you believe that there should be a linked language for our country as well?
Don't quoting several countries' languages. This country lived from last, even after independence, 75 years. We have already run in this country. 75 years, this country is going smoothly. You people wanted to destroy this country's structure. who are forcing like this. Several countries' issues based, different countries' issues different. But here, this country structure is different. Even in this country, several youngsters, they wanted to learn France or French, anything languages, they learn if they want.
Mr. Kumaraswamy, you are saying don't create a divide, and if not Hindi, don't you believe that English can be that link language?
No, that is actually several years, several thousand years. We are actually following that to communicate. To communicate Hindi, if they want anybody to learn Hindi, they will learn. Why you force them? By protecting their language, if they want to communicate some their issues, if they want any language, they will learn. Why you raise this issue now? In this country, several problems we are facing. Country, several issues are there. Why you are not looking after all those several issues?
But Mr. Kumaraswamy, you speak about regionalism and how regional languages need to be promoted and kept alive. But why are you choosing a foreign language like English to be a link language for the country?
One more problem. What is the achievement you will get?
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ajay Kumaraswamy, for joining us here on Times Now and sharing your point of view as far as this entire debate is concerned. He maintains the fact that there should not be a concerted effort to divide the country on basis of language, once again stating that Hindi is not their language.